Hi, good morning. This is the lesson for Tuesday. It's going to be broken down in two parts. The first 15 problems and the lesson are going to be in part one, and then problems 17 through 30, the ones that we're going to do for that section are going to be in part two. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump straight into the lesson. We're on page 413, lesson 86. Okay, so since lesson four, we have practiced solving missing factor problems. In this lesson, we will solve problems in which the unknown factor is a mixed number or a decimal number. Remember, we can find an unknown factor by dividing the product by the known factor. And we're going to look at a couple examples here. So example number one, we have 5 times n, or 5n, equals 21. In order to find n, which is the missing factor, okay, this is a multiplication problem. So first factor is known, 5. The second factor is unknown. In order to find the missing factor, we're going to divide both the factor and the answer, the product, by the known factor, okay? So we're going to divide 21 by 5, okay? Let me illustrate it this way. Both sides are going to be divided by 5. By doing so, we're going to cancel out the 5 on this side of our equation, and the unknown is going to be left here. And now we can go ahead and work out the division problem. So 21 divided by 5, 5 goes into 24 times evenly. 4 times 5 is 20. Then we subtract 20 from 21, which gives us 1. Now we write our remainder as a fraction. So 1 over 5. So your final answer, n equals 4 and 1/5. Okay? So if we were to take 5n with n with n equaling 4 and 1/5, if we were to multiply these two together, 5 times 4 and 1/5 equals 21. Okay? Next, example number 2. So we dealt with the factor. The unknown factor in this equation was 4 and 1/5. Okay, so that's a fraction. Now let's work with decimals. We've got 0.6 times m. Okay, that's how you would read it, or 0.6m equals 0.048. Same thing. We are gonna divide the answer by the known factor. So I'm gonna illustrate that by writing my line, my fraction line, which signifies division, and I write my decimal, okay? So I could say I'm dividing both sides. All this does on this side is it cancels these out, okay? 0.6 goes into 0.61 time evenly. So we've got n left. Now we've got to figure out how many times 0.6 goes into 0.8 evenly. So now you follow the same rules we would when dividing with decimals, okay? You can't have a decimal as your divisor, so we need to multiply that by 10. So 0.6 times 10 is 6. The decimal point moves one place to the right. And then 0.08 is also multiplied by 10, so our decimal point moves one place to the right. So now, instead of dividing 0.048 by 0.6, we're going to divide 0.48 by the whole number 6. And then we go ahead and divide, so 6 doesn't go into 0. So I put a 0, I place my decimals in the dividend, and I place my decimal in line in the quotient. 6 doesn't go into 4, so I write a 0. 6 goes into 48 8 times. 8 times 6 is 48. We subtract it, and we see there's no remainder, so we don't have to keep going. But we found out what m equals. M equals 0.8. So if we were to take 0.6 times 0.8, our final answer would be 0.048. All right? Let's see here. Again, we find the unknown factor by dividing the product by the known factor. Okay, so this is the product, 0.08. 0.6 is the known factor, and we divide the product by the known factor. Since there's a decimal number in the problem, we will write our answer in decimal form, or as a decimal number. All right, example number 3, make sure you're following along in your books. We have 45 equals 4x, or 4 times 5. An equal sign is not directional. It doesn't mean you have to work the problem in that direction, okay? And I'll illustrate it right now. It simply states that the quantities on either side of the sign are equal. In this case, the product is 45 and the known factor is 4. We divide 45 by 4 to find the unknown factor. So we're in example number 3 here. 45 equals 4x. Okay, so don't let that confuse you, don't let that intimidate you or throw you off. This could also be read 4x equals 45. Like you were saying before, the equal sign simply states a fact, okay? It could be switched around. I could write it as 4x equals 45. So 45 is the product, okay? So we're not dividing this by 45. We're dividing 45 by 4 because 4 is the known factor, okay? Remember, when multiplying numbers together, you multiply factors, okay? So 4 is the known factor, x is the unknown factor. In order to find the unknown factor, we need to divide the product, okay, which is the answer to a multiplication problem. We need to divide the product by the known factor. So again, I'll illustrate it by writing my 4, okay? This cancels out. Now I divide 45 divided by 4. 4 goes into 4 goes into 4 one time evenly. 4 minus 4 is 0. 4 goes into 5 one time evenly. And then I subtract 4 from 5, which gives me a 1. And then I write my 1 as a remainder, 1 over 4. So x would equal 11 and 1 over 4. 11 and 1 over 4. So if I were to plug in the value of x here, where is it? Here, it's all crossed out. And if I were to do 4 times 11 and 1/4, the final answer would be 45 because that is the unknown factor. X is the unknown factor, and we found it by dividing the product by the known factor, okay? We'll have more examples like that in the next few problems. So let's go ahead and do the odd numbers for problems 1 through 15. All right, we'll jump right in. We've got, number 1 is a word problem. If the divisor is 12 and the quotient is 24, what is the dividend? All right, the dividend is gonna be in this setup, is gonna be the first number, okay? Make sure you don't mix them up. So x is the unknown factor, or is the unknown term. So x divided by 12 equals 24. So we need to try to find what the unknown term is in this problem. So just like we use division to find the missing factor in multiplication, we're gonna use multiplication to find the missing term in this division problem, okay? So I set it up like this. I've got x over 12. Okay, we're missing our dividend. We need to find out what the dividend is in this problem. So what I did is we're gonna multiply both of these by the known term, which is 12 in this case. So 12 times x over 12 equals 24 times 12. Here, same thing. 12 goes into 12 one time evenly, so that leaves my x. Now I can write 24 times 12. So I worked it out with you. I know most of you guys know how to do this, but I want to make sure you're showing your work, okay? So follow along. Make sure you have this on your papers for when you turn it in, okay? So 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. Then I write my 0, and then I multiply again, going from right to left. 1 times 4 is 4, and 1 times 2 is 2. Now I take these two partial products and I add them together. 8 plus 0 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 8, and then we have 2. So your final answer, x equals 288. So if you were to get rid of that and write the value of x, 288 divided by 12 equals 24. And we found that by multiplying by the known, okay? It uses the reverse operation or the inverted operation, okay? So to find the missing factor in a multiplication problem, you divide. To find the missing term in a division problem, you multiply. It can get confusing sometimes, but if you have any questions, let me know. All right, number 3, we're talking about ratios, I believe. 14 of the 32 students in class are boys. What is the ratio of boys to girls? Okay, so we're not given how many girls are in the class, but we can find out how many girls there are simply by taking the number of total students, 32, and subtracting the known from it, okay? So we know there's 14 students, we don't know how many girls there are, but we know the total. So we're gonna subtract 32 minus 14, which gives us 18, okay? So we know the rest of the students are girls of the total, so we've got 18 girls. So now I can write my ratio of boys to girls. Remember, it's important to do it in the correct order. of the information that they ask. So we've got 14 over 18, and then we're gonna put it in reduced form. So 2 goes into both of these evenly. 2 divided by, 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 8 divided by 2 is 9. So the ratio of boys to girls in this particular classroom is 7 to 9. And it should be written like this, 7 to 9. Okay, so make sure you show your work because that is very important. Number 5, we have 31 equals 5n, okay? Remember, this could also be read 5n equals 31, okay? Let's go on. In order to find, this is multiplication, 5 times n equals 31. In order to find the missing factor, okay, of this equation, we need to divide the product by the known factor. The known factor is 5, the unknown factor is n. We need to divide the product by 5. So I'm gonna write my division line. These cancel out, okay? And then I'll do my division up here on the side. I've got 31 divided by 5. 5 goes into 31 6 times evenly. 6 times 5 is 30. I subtract it, and I get a 1. Then I write my remainder as a fraction 1 over 5. So n equals 6 and 1/5. So your final answer for number 5 is 6 and 1/5. And now on to number 7. Number 7, 6.5 plus 3.5. And if you look in your book, the answer needs to be in decimal form. That means our fraction, 3 over 5, needs to be converted into a decimal number. So I went ahead and did that. I've got 6.5 plus 3/5. Okay, so let's show that as a fraction. 3 is my dividend, the numerator becomes the dividend, 5 is the divisor. 5 does not go into 3, so I write a 0 and I put a decimal. And I make sure my decimal point in my dividend and my quotient are lined up. Now I see how many times does 5 go into 30? It goes into it 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30, I subtract it, no remainder, so I don't need to keep dividing. So I've got 6.6. Now I can add 6.5 plus 6.6. See, when adding and subtracting decimals, remember that our decimals need to be lined up. So I've lined up my decimals. There's a 0 in the ones place, a 6 in the tens place, okay? And the 5's in the tens place, the 6 is in the ones place, and they're all lined up. Now we can add them. 5 plus 6 is 11, carry the 1. 6 plus 1 is 7. So our final answer is 6.17. And we're showing our answer in decimal form. Next, number 9. We've got 175% as a decimal, okay? Remember, a percentage is simply a fraction with the denominator of 100. So this is one way to look at it. 175 over 100. This line also represents division. So 175 divided by 100. So I could write out the whole division problem, or I could simply do what we've been practicing. When we divide a number by 100 or by 10, all we have to do is move the decimal point over however many zeros there are, okay? So when we multiply, just like we did in the division problem back here, when we multiply by 10 or by 100 or by 1,000, we move the decimal point to the right when we multiply. When we divide, we move the decimal point to the left. So in this case, the decimal point moves 2 places to the left to become 1.75. And so 175% written as a decimal would be 1.75. So that's the final answer. Next, number 11. We have 12 and 1/5 minus 3 and 1/5. And they did something really, not really weird, but I think it's the first time we see it here, where we don't have to change the fraction. Okay, it's already they already have a common denominator, so we don't need to find the least common multiple. So let's just go ahead and subtract these fractions together. We have 12 and 1/5 minus 3 and 4/5. Now, you can't take away 4 from the 1, so we need to borrow from the 12. We need to borrow a fraction whole from the 12. The 12 becomes an 11, and we borrow 5 over 5, okay? This represents the 1 that we borrowed, or the whole that we borrowed from the 12. We add these together, 1/5 plus 5/5. Okay, when adding fractions, remember we don't add the denominators, we just add the numerators, so we've got 6 over 5. Now I can subtract it. 6 minus 4 equals 2. The denominator remains the same. 11 minus 3 equals 8. So your final answer for number 11 should be 8 2/5. 8 2/5. Next, number 13, we've got 11 1/9 divided by 100. 11 1/9 divided by 100. Remember, when multiplying or dividing mixed numbers, the mixed number needs to be changed into an improper fraction first. So the way we do that, we multiply the denominator by the whole number. Okay, so 9 times 11 is 99. And then we add the product to the numerator. So 99 plus 1 is 100. And now I write it as an improper fraction, 100 over 9. Now, we don't divide it by the number, we have to multiply it by its reciprocal. The reciprocal of 100 is 1 over 100. This is the reciprocal. So we need to multiply it by its reciprocal. So I write 1 over 100. I've changed my division sign to a multiplication sign. And now I can cross multiply these, okay? 100 goes into 100 one time evenly, so that converts to 1. 1 times 1 is 1, 9 times 1 is 9. So the final answer is 1/9. 1/9. And then our last problem for this first part of the video, let's do problem number 15. We've got 0.35 divided by 4. 0.35 is the dividend, so I place it inside the box. 4 is the divisor, so it goes outside. It's a whole number, so we don't need to change that, so we can go ahead and start dividing. 4 goes into 0 times. We line up our decimals in the dividend and the quotient. Make sure that you have that written down. Then we see how many times 4 goes into 3. It doesn't. So we go on to the next one. 4 goes into 35 8 times. So 8 times 4 is 32. 35 minus 32 is 3. So I subtract that, bring the 3 down, and then bring my 0 down. Okay, I add a 0, bring down the 0. 4 goes into 37 times evenly. So 7 times 4 is 28. Then I subtract 28 from 30, which gives me 2. Bring down the 0. Well, I add a 0, and then I bring down the 0. Because this continues going until there's no remainders. Okay, so 4 goes into 25 times evenly. 5 times 4 is 20. We subtract it, and we see that that 20 minus 20 is 0. So there's no need to continue adding zeros and continue adding to the quotient. So your final answer to number 15 is 0.0875. Okay, so make sure you show your work. Make sure make sure you're not just writing the final answers from the video. Make sure you're showing your work. A lot of you, I'm really proud of you. I'm actually looking at your work right now. It's set out on a table. You guys are showing your work, so keep up the great work. And let's go on to part number 2. Thank you.